Center for Industrial and Medical Ultrasound at Applied Physics Lab has shown a capability to demonstrate to FDA the safety of new investigational devices for medical care. An integral part of that is the outputs, the exposures, ultimately the doses that these devices deliver.
In our lab, we use a variety of transducers to generate ultrasound. One of the challenges that we have in working with such a wide variety of ultrasound devices is that they generate a wide range of ultrasound fields, and this means they generate a variety of different pressure levels. We need instruments that can accurately measure each of these fields and characterize them so that we know what pressure levels we're going to be administering in the body.
These measurements have to be extremely rigorous, careful, reliable, and accurate because the consequences are high. We are, for the first time, taking medical devices and putting them against a patient's skin where we may not even be able to see the area where the therapy is happening deep in their bodies.
To take measurements in water, the first thing is you need a hydrophone and you need to mount your source transducer. We orient the motor and the hydrophone relative to the source transducer, and then in that way we're able to now characterize the acoustic field.
What happens is the computer sends a signal to trigger the transducer, and then the hydrophone collects the data points. After that, the hydrophone moves, and then it communicates to the computer that send another signal to the transducer, and the cycle continues.
We capture all of the energy of the acoustic beam emanating from the source transducer, and now we can reconstruct, we can mathematically backpropagate the field and reconstruct what was the field on the surface of the transducer.
For ultrasound waves, equations that govern propagation of ultrasound in water or in human body, they are well established. So the key component to make these simulations accurate is a boundary condition and the properties of the propagation medium, the acoustic properties of the human body.
So if you know precisely this boundary condition, actually, and you know the wave equation, you can predict everything.
Similar to the creation of 3D optical holograms, the CIMU researchers measure the 2D acoustic pressure distribution of the ultrasound beam emanating from the transducer, and then reconstruct mathematically the exact field on the surface of the transducer and in the entire 3D space, creating an acoustic hologram.
And this is what we are proud of. We can do it. Based on this hologram, we can predict the field in the space. And then, if you know the field, you can predict heating, cavitation, many effects of the ultrasound field. But also the same field, the same hologram, if you, instead of forward propagating, you back propagate it to the source, you can reconstruct the source structure.
In many new medical ultrasound technologies, they rely on using very high amplitude, so-called nonlinear acoustic waves with steep shock fronts, in order to predict at which level of the output we can reach the shock formation and the focus. We need a lot of measurements. It's almost impossible to do even in water. And so with acousticallography, it makes it very straightforward. We reconstruct the behavior of the transducer, then we increase the power and use nonlinear equations, and we can predict the output and the structure of the field at very high acoustic pressure level.
In therapeutic ultrasound for very high intensity fields, this is a new area, and actually there's active development ongoing in the international standards community, and we're contributing to that. We're working on helping to develop standards for how should these measurements be done and the projection calculations and simulations following from it. And so our method in particular is to take measurements on the plane, we backpropagate, reconstruct the pattern of vibrations on the source, and now we use that as a boundary condition for modeling the forward field. And that's our recipe, which we're including in international standards.
Science at work for you. This is APL, the Applied Physics Laboratory at the University of Washington in Seattle.